What is up? This is your LA in a minute, and I'm here in Southgate at Greenspan's, which is not just the oldest family-owned clothing store in Los Angeles, but the oldest west of Texas. In fact, Greenspan's turns 95 years old today, and they're known as the last original clothing store. And the thing is, they're more relevant now than ever, proving that classic LA style really is timeless. Let's get into it. In 1928, Alex and Eva Greenspan bought a parcel of land on 103rd Street in Watts, and they built the first Greenspans, which sold knickknacks, everything they could to scrape together some money, especially clothes. And they succeeded for 5 years until the 1933 Long Beach earthquake caused a fire which destroyed everything. And this was the middle of the Great Depression, and times were tough. So as they tried to rebuild, they were often bartering clothes for security, for food, even for dance lessons, just to keep the mood light. And by 1939, they had saved enough money to open up this Greenspan store right here in Southgate on Tweedy Boulevard. So when they opened that store in 1939, Alex and Eva left it in the hands of their son, Eddie, who was only in junior high at the time. But there was no denying his brains or his foresight or his fashion sense. And in fact, one of the first things he did was become the first retail store in all of America to carry Dickies. That's right, here in Greenspan's, an undeniable LA and American classic. So Eddie was also a designer. I'm telling you, he had an eye and a brain for fashion. And he came up with peg-top pants, wide around the waist, narrow around the ankles, which were the biggest selling pants in America in the 1950s. Beachcomber shorts, which were popularized in the 1960s. And he also designed many shirts in the California classic style that could only be described as vintage. Another of Eddie's visionary moves was to buy cotton and wool stuff that was considered out of style. In fact, it was known as dead stock. But he had the foresight to know that certain items, even zoot suits, would come back in style. And right here at Greenspan's was the epicenter of that California, Los Angeles cool. So not only did fashions like the zoot suit come back in style, but tastemakers from Europe, from Japan, from Melrose, from Hollywood came calling, because Greenspan's was the only place that people could find those authentic styles. Another breakthrough came when Southgate's own Cypress Hill and NWA from Compton used to rock the Greenspan's originals on album covers, on MTV, in magazines, and it shined a light on what can now only be described as the classic LA hip-hop look from right here at Greenspan's. But it was also surf, skate, swing revival, all that when people needed that California feel from whatever era, they got it right here at Greenspan's. And you can't talk about Greenspan's without talking about Pendletons. These are those thick woolen surf shirts popularized in the 60s. Well, Greenspan's has a personal exclusive relationship with them, and they're actually the biggest distributor of Pendleton in the world, including more than Pendleton themselves. Wow. Did I say they sell more Pendletons than anybody? All these racks are Pendletons. They call it the rack of 7,000 Pendletons, but there's actually more because they also have these on the walls. World's largest. Tragedy struck in 1993 during a fireworks incident for 4th of July, which destroyed almost 70% of the store's inventory. Looked like time was up for Greenspan's, but an outpouring of community support, love, and patronizing the business for these classic clothes kept the business alive, as well as a significant change. 1995, when Eddie's son Evan became partner and began steering the business in a new direction. What did you do for that new direction, Evan?
Well, we started making things that weren't available anymore, classic styles, and making them authentically in the original factories that used to make them.
And that's what you see today. Most of this inventory, a large portion of this inventory, is authentic reproductions of that California cool and that LA classic. Thank you so much, Evan.
Thank you.
28 years after Evan took over, his son Josh is ready to take the torch as Greenspan's heads into its next 95 years as the largest carrier of American-made clothing in all of Los Angeles County. And one more thing. Today, Greenspan's is actually having a 95th anniversary block party. There's going to be entertainment, food, events, a special exclusive Pendleton release, sales. So come on down to Greenspan's. It's celebrating 95 years today with a big old party. So Greenspan's is the oldest family-owned clothing store in Los Angeles, and they're 95 years old. And their style, still classic and still timeless. All right, LA, it's been a minute.